Genesis chapter number 27. The Bible reads, And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau, his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here I am. Here am I. And he said, Behold now, I am old. I know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow, and go out to the field, and take me some venison, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison, and to bring it. And Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison, and make me savory meat, that I may eat, and bless thee before the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock, and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father, peradventure, will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing. And his mother said unto him, Upon me be thy curse. My son, only obey my voice, and go fetch me them. And he went and fetched, and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory meat, such as his father loved. And Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands, and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave the savory meat and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came unto his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I. Who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said unto his son, How is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, Behold, because the Lord thy God brought it to me. And Isaac said unto Jacob, Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. And Jacob went near unto Isaac his father, and he felt him, and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. And he said, Art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. And he said, Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, Come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near, and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him, and said, See, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Lord hath blessed. Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be every one that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting, and he also had made savory meat, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, Let my father arise, and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly, and said, Who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it me, and I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him? Yea, and he shall be blessed. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father. And he said, Thy brother came with subtlety, and hath taken away thy blessing. And he said, Is not he rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and the dew of heaven from above. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will slay my brother Jacob. And these words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah, and she sent and called Jacob her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice, and arise. Flee thou to Laban, my brother, to Haran, and tarry with him a few days, until thy brother's fury turn away, until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him. Then I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these which are the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do me? Brother Lucas, would you pray for our service?
Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your word and fill the pastor with your Holy Spirit and your wisdom as we speak your message. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Genesis 27 here, more history, more story that we can learn from. And we get some ideas about what life was like then or around then with Isaac and his family here. But I want to go through this chapter. I want to go through the entire chapter. I know that it's a lot larger than previous chapters, but we're going to go through every verse here, and let's see what the Lord says. Look at verse number 1. It says, "And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau, his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here am I. And he said, Behold, now I am old, I know not the day of my death. Now, therefore, take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow, and go out to the field, and take me some venison, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die." And a couple of things I want to just look at in this passage of this chapter here is, well, number one, venison, that's deer meat. Okay, venison, that's what Isaac liked to eat, and Esau knew how to make it. But the beginning of this passage, Isaac knows that he is getting old. He's aware of his vision being poor, and he makes a decision where he's like, okay, I know that I'm about to die at some point. It's getting late for me. Let me go ahead and bless my eldest son. And at this point, I don't think that Isaac knew that Esau had already sold his birthright to Jacob. I think that in a traditional sense, Isaac had a blessing for his son, and that practice is still continued today, where the eldest son receives most of or all of the inheritance, the property of the parents or the father. And that's what's taking place here, where this blessing is not just, okay, be happy, be blessed, but he's telling Esau, I'm going to give you all of everything that belongs to me. Why? Because I'm about to die. I'm about to go to the Lord. And I think another thing we can learn here is that, we should be thankful for every day that we have. This particular passage reminds me that we don't know when we're going to die, right? And yes, everybody knows that they don't know when they're going to die, but how often do people consider that they need to, teach their children, they need to get their affairs in order? That's typically what they'll say to people. Get your affairs in order. Make sure that you kissed your mom, you kissed your dad, you kissed your children, you kissed your spouse. You've done all these things that are for you to do on this earth, because when you go to heaven, we're still here, right? Everybody else is still here. All of your stuff is still here. And I like how there's this passage here where Isaac, he knows that he's getting old, his vision is getting poor, and what does he say? Okay, I need to bless my son. And I think that is a great perspective to have, where you take each day as a blessing, but when you know that, hey, my life, I'm not going to be here forever. I'm going to be here for a certain amount of time, and I need to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. I'm leaving a legacy. I'm loving those that are near me. I'm doing everything I need to do today. See, a lot of people, they will wait until tomorrow or wait until next week. They'll say today, I'll get that done at some point in time in the future, but we can't do that. We can't live our lives where we're saying, oh yeah, I'll get that done sometime in the future. No, we need to say, well, I have an opportunity today. I can do it right now. I can get it done. And I don't know if I have tomorrow, but today is a good day to do it. So don't put off things that you can do today for, in the future. Isaac certainly didn't. He wasn't like, well, at one of these days, Esau will just get blessed. No, he's like, no, I'm laying down here. My eyes are dim, which is a euphemism for he's probably blind or, not seeing very well. Yeah, it's getting close to the end. I want to bless my son. That's a good perspective to have. Look at verse number 5. It says, And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. And Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison and make me savory meat, that means delicious meat or delicious food, that I may eat and bless thee before the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Now, yes, Rebekah is teaching Jacob to lie. She's teaching him to deceive, to sin is what she's doing here. And the reason that she's doing that is she wants Jacob to be blessed. Go ahead and just flip back real quick to Genesis chapter 25. Genesis chapter 25. We have a short reference to this in verse number 28. It says, "And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob." And so Isaac had a closeness to Esau, and Rebekah, she had a closeness unto Jacob. And so, yes, she's telling him to lie here. But the Bible is not telling us to lie. The Bible is not telling us it's okay to lie, or it's not saying that it's okay to deceive people. See, one of the things about the Bible is it records history. It records events that took place. There are plenty of liars, murderers, thieves that are in the Bible that have been recorded, but the Bible does not teach that we're to follow those things. We ought to learn from those things, because those people, they suffered in their lives. Many people, they were punished because of the sin that they committed. And so that is also recorded in the Bible. So don't take this as, Rebekah lied, Jacob lied. Nope. This is just recording, telling us what took place and what was happening at that time. Look at verse number 9. It says, "Go now to the flock." This is Rebekah still coaching Jacob. "And fetch me from thence two good kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth, and thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing. And his mother said unto him, Upon me be thy curse, my son. Only obey my voice, and go fetch me them." Now, one of the things I want to look at right here, flip back to Genesis 25, verse number 26. Jacob, in the innocency of his heart, he's like, no, I'm going to be known as a deceiver, which I find very interesting, because names often have meaning. They mean something, whether it's in the Bible or just naming things. People often like to categorize things. You experience something and then you say, oh, well, that right there is, whatever you want to call it for that experience that you had. And we categorize things like that. And so I think an important thing to remember here is that names do mean something, and you don't want to just name your children just any random thing or anything that is a bad or a negative name. Later on in the chapter, we'll see verse 36, Esau, he complains about Jacob's name because he's accusing him of stealing the blessing or stealing the birthright from him. But we know that that's not what happened. Esau, he despised his birthright and therefore sold it. Look at verse number 26 in Genesis chapter 25. Why was Jacob called Jacob? Why was that his name? It says here, and after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. So when these twin boys were born, Jacob, he grabbed the heel of Esau as Esau came out first. And it says, and his name was called Jacob because of that action there that he did when he was born or being born. It says his name was called Jacob, and Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. The word Jacob means supplanter, or someone who overthrows or trips somebody up. That's why when the baby Jacob grabbed Esau's heel, they were like, oh, well, let's call him Jacob, because grabbing the heel or tripping up someone else, that is what that means. And, I remember we knew some people who they had a son, and they named him a name in another language. And, I'm interested in languages, so I asked, hey, what does that mean? Or what's the meaning of that name? And they said rebel or rebellion. And, back then I thought about that. I was like, well, wow, that's very interesting that you would name your son Rebellion. Why would you do that? Or name your son Rebel? But, interestingly enough, now we're over a decade later, and people literally name their children Rebel. That's an actual name that people name their child. And so when I saw this, yes, names mean something, but even Esau means hairy. Okay, that's what Esau means. Then later on, they called him Edom because Edom means red. He was like had a red tint to his skin. And so when naming children, name them appropriately. Name your children a blessed name. Okay, that's think about what you name things or what you call things, because they kind of stuck with that name. Now, the reason why I said that is because Jacob's name was changed. If you recall, God changed Jacob's name to Israel, which means strength with God. And so very interesting there that Jacob, he was named that, and even Esau kind of used that against him. Oh, you deceiver. And then we see, history plays out. Obviously, they're adults at this point in time. And his mom, Rebecca, is, training him to be deceptive to his brother. I just find that very interesting. Go ahead, look at Genesis 27. Look at verse number 14. It says, and he went and fetched and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory meat, such as his father loved, and Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son, Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob, her son. So there's this elaborate scheme here, all of these details into this scheme to dress Jacob like Esau. And she's kind of just coaching through this whole thing. It says, and she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave the savory meat and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came unto his father and said, my father. And he said, here am I. Who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. So even Jacob lied too. So Rebekah is lying, or coaching Jacob to be deceptive, and going through all of these, all of these different steps to deceive the dad. But then Jacob himself says, hey, I'm Esau. I'm my older brother. Yeah. They're taking advantage of this elderly man who can't see very well. It says here, I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that my soul may bless me. Now notice, Isaac, he doesn't quite believe Jacob. He's like inquiring about what's going on. Are you really my son? Look what it says. It says, and Isaac said unto his son, how is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, because the Lord thy God brought it to me. That's not what happened. And Isaac said unto Jacob, come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. So what's going on here? Jacob, he's lying. He's trying to deceive his dad to get this blessing. He's working really hard to get this blessing here. He's got goat skins on his arms. He smells like outside. He's got everything ready, but his voice is not exactly like Esau's. Go ahead and flip to Romans chapter 3. Romans chapter 3. Now, I do want to say, Jacob and Rebekah, they both lied, they deceived, but Jacob wasn't blessed because of his lying or his deceiving. He was blessed because of the promise that God had made unto Abraham that would then pass on to Isaac and that would pass on to Jacob. Because it's according to the promise, according to faith. Now, Esau is the example, or kind of the picture of someone who does not trust God, who's just trusting in their flesh. We see Esau, he despised his birthright. He threw away a blessing because he wanted food. He wanted to fulfill his flesh. Whereas we see Jacob actually, his name is later changed to Israel. We're not there yet, but he actually struggles with God. He believes on God. He is a picture of someone who has faith, who is brought in closer to God according to a promise. So the lie itself, Jacob's lying, we're all sinners, but Jacob's lying is not what got him the blessing. So don't walk away from Genesis 27 and think, oh yeah, well Jacob lied, that's why he got blessed. No, it's not. God, he fulfilled his promise, And it wasn't, no man could change that. We are not powerful enough to change, what God said He set in order and what He's going to do. Now, this kind of points to what's in Romans chapter 3. I want to just read through a few verses. Look at verse number 4, because it's related to Jacob lying, and the blessing did not come to Jacob because of his lie. It says in verse number 4, it says, God forbid, yea, let God be true, but every man a liar. As it is written, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings, and mightest overcome when thou art judged. Now, how might we overcome when we are judged? By faith in Jesus Christ, you see? Because let God be true and every man be a liar. So your lie, whatever, sin or wickedness that you're in, well, that is not going to yield a blessing for you from God. That's it. You are saved. You have eternal life because of the grace that God has put on your life. It's not because of, all of the great things that you've done. And you're not going to hell because of all the sin or the lies that you've committed either, because of the grace or the promise of God. It says in verse number 5, but if our unrighteousness commend the righteousness of God, what shall we say? Is God unrighteous who taketh vengeance? I speak as a man. This is a man's argument saying, well, God must be unrighteous because, we're unrighteous and He is giving us His righteousness. So He therefore is unrighteous. No, it says right here, God forbid. Verse number 6. For then how shall God judge the world? Right? For if the truth of God hath more abounded through my lie unto His glory, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? And not rather as we be slanderously reported, and as some affirm that we say, let us do evil that good may come, whose damnation is just. And so damnation is justified for sinners. We just sang the song, only a sinner saved by grace. Yes, we are sinners. But you know what? Because we trusted God, we trusted Him with our everlasting life, with our resurrection, the resurrection of our body. Well, we're not going to see that damnation in hell. And the same thing with Jacob. Jacob, he's saved. Okay. Yes, he did lie, he did deceive, but just because God, rescued him or blessed him, doesn't mean that he's, some righteous, sinless person. No, he sinned, and he still deserves punishment in hell, but Jacob's not going to get that. You've sinned, you deserve punishment in hell forever, but you're not going to get it because you put your faith in God. And so there when we see in Romans chapter 3, Paul, he kind of explains this, that yes, we're all sinners. Okay. We're all sinners and we deserve hell. This is one of the things that we must teach when we preach the gospel, that the person understands, yeah, you should go to hell. If you ask the person, okay, well, will everybody just go to heaven because Jesus died on the cross for them? And if they say, well, yeah, well, you have to say, okay, well, let's slow down. We all deserve hell. I've even asked people, at the door, do you believe that you deserve to go to hell? Like, if Jesus Christ didn't die for your sins, would you deserve to go to hell? Do you deserve that? Do you earn that? And most people will say, well, yeah, I deserve that. But some will say, no way. Well, they're missing the point. And so, yes, lying like Jacob did, he still deserves to go to hell. But because of his faith in God, he will not see hell. Go ahead and flip back to Genesis chapter 27. Another thing that we see here is how Isaac, he kind of knew that it wasn't Esau because he knew the sound of the voice of his children. And that's something that happens just as a dad. I know I can hear my children say something in another room, and I know which one it is. It just comes with being a parent, and it's kind of cool here how Isaac, even when in his old age, he kind of knew, like, I don't think this is Esau, and that's why he's interrogating him. Look at verse number 22. It says, and Jacob went near unto Isaac, his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy, and his brother Esau's hands, as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him, and he said, Art thou my very son Esau? So just one more check. Are you really him? And he said, I am. Look at verse number 25. It says, and he said, Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat. And he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, Come near now and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him, and said, See, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field, which the Lord hath blessed. Therefore, God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee. So he's going down the blessing here. What's going to happen to Jacob? Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. So all of his siblings. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. Now, this is a major blessing for Jacob, which later on his name is changed to Israel. But notice blessing is similar to the blessing that Abraham got, right? The blessing that Abraham got is that, or part of it was that God would bless Abraham, and that anybody who cursed Abraham would be cursed. Not the nation of Israel, okay? Not an entire nation, but that individual. And the same thing we see here with Jacob. The blessing means Jacob would be a blessing, and anyone that blesses him would be blessed. That's Jacob. And anyone that curses him would be cursed. That's talking about the individual Jacob. Look at verse number 29. It says, we read verse 29. Go ahead and flip to Genesis 25. Genesis 25. Keeping in mind verse 29 from chapter 27, because of all the blessings that were given to Jacob. Of course, Isaac thought he was giving to Esau. Look at verse number 22. It says, And the children struggled together within her, and she said, If it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. This is talking about Rebekah when Jacob and Esau were still in her womb. Verse 23, And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. So it was already prophesied here that, you know what, the older one, the one that comes out first, is actually going to serve the younger. And so God had a already known that this was going to take place, and that is what he explains to her, why there was this, battling taking place within her. And God was explaining that there's 2 nations, 2 manner of people. Now, symbolically there, we see the 2 manner of people that came from Rebekah, one being a people that trust God, and the other being a people that reject God. It does not mean that Esau, went to hell or anything. It's not saying that. It's just saying that there will be 2 nations, 2 types of people that come from you, Rebekah. Obviously Esau was the elder and Jacob was the younger, but it's saying here that Esau, he's going to serve his younger brother, Jacob. That was going to happen, and we see that playing out. We see that happening in Genesis 27, where it not only says that Esau will serve Jacob, but it also says that other nations, and Jacob would be Lord over many people. And Rebekah's other sons would bow down unto Jacob. Now flip back to Genesis chapter 27. Look at verse number 30. It says, and it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting, and he also had made savory meat, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, let my father arise, and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. Now Esau is coming in, he's hoping for that blessing. Again, I don't think Isaac knew that the birthright was given unto, or it was passed on to Jacob. I think Esau, he was just giving out a blessing that was going to be given out, and it went to Jacob because of the prophesied blessing on to the younger twin. Look at verse number 33. Oh, I'm sorry, 32. It says, and Isaac his father said unto him, who art thou? He's basically saying, who are you? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it me, and I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him? Yea, and he shall be blessed. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, bless me, even me also, O my father. Here Esau is crying and whining about this blessing that he did not get. But remember, Esau, for just a little bit of food, he had already rejected the birthright. Go ahead and flip to Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12. Now, the context of Hebrews chapter 12, a large portion of it is about a father chastising his children. And yes, the Bible teaches that parents ought to chastise or spank their children. There ought to be a punishment as part of the training of children so that they learn to do what is right. And we see Esau, he kind of gets that chastisement here spiritually because he rejected his birthright. Look at verse number 16 in Hebrews chapter 12. It says, lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau. So Esau was referred to as a profane person, a rebellious person, a wicked person, for who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. For ye know how that afterward, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected. For he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. Now flip over to Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3. You know, when it comes to chastising our children, we can't be driven by or led by the tears of the child, because as the adult, as the one doing the training, we have to train them in the way that they should go. So when they're old, they will not depart from it. We need to obey God and not the children. So many parents go wrong today because they're heeding what their children say unto them, how their children are leading them, and not how God is leading them, or how God wants us to raise our children. Proverbs 19:18 says, chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not thy soul spare for his crying. So Esau, Isaac, one of the things that he told Esau while he's crying and, oh, bless me, please. What? Isaac just said, I blessed Jacob. The blessing's all done. You got to get over it. He didn't say, oh, okay, well, wait, let me take that blessing back and give it unto you, Esau. Nope. It was already done. Regardless of the tears. And that is the pattern for, training or chastising our children. You don't need to be driven by their tears, or by their complaining, or by their whining and groaning. No, when it's time for chastisement, whether it's spanking physically, or whether it's they lose privileges, you take away something that they thought that they should have gotten, okay, but because of their sin and their rebellion, well, that's the punishment. And don't change. Don't say, okay, well, I'll go easy on you, this time because of your crying or because of your whining. No, whatever the punishment is, stick with that punishment. Now, I'm not saying there are no times for grace. I mean, oftentimes as a parent. You don't spank the child for every single thing. Okay, you don't take away certain privileges for every single thing. This punishment is not always the same, but whatever the punishment is, let them know that you should get this particular punishment, but this time I'm going to give you some grace because maybe you didn't really know, or the instruction wasn't clear. So there's opportunity and places for grace, but in principle, you don't just change just because they're whining and crying about the punishment. Look at verse number 11 in Proverbs chapter 3. It says, "My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction, for whom the Lord loveth he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth." And this passage here is really or is mostly for the child. Understand that when your parents chastise you in a godly manner, well, they're doing that because they love you. They want to see you grow. They want to see you become a strong man or woman of God. They want to see you with the right head on your shoulders, because there are many, many people. You can see them in the stores. You see them driving cars where you can tell that they were not told no. They were not chastised when they were children. But now as adults, they're not very good adults, not very productive, not very nice, not very respectable. And so that all starts with parents spanking or parents chastising their children and not being moved by their tears. Flip back to Genesis 27. Look at verse number 35. So part of Esau's punishment is because he despised his birthright. I don't think Isaac knew that, but this was the punishment that came down on Esau. Verse 35, it says here, "And he said, Thy brother came with subtlety and hath taken away thy blessing. And he said, Is not he rightly named Jacob?" So here's Esau trying to point blame at Jacob. Oh yeah, isn't he a deceiver? Isn't he a supplanter, that guy Jacob? "For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. What was the first time? Well, the first time in Esau's mind is when he sold his birthright. But that wasn't Jacob's. That wasn't Jacob's doing. That was Esau despising his birthright and giving it up and selling it unto Esau. It says here, "He took away my birthright, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me?" Now it's interesting here that Esau, he didn't own up to selling his birthright. He didn't own up to him rejecting the birthright or despising it. He didn't. He just said, "Well, Jacob took it from me." And oftentimes when people, they are either self-centered or only thinking about themselves, well, they will try to blame the problems that they're in, the trouble that they're in, even the punishment they're in, on somebody else. They'll change the story. And even though Esau wept, he cried about it and blamed Jacob, well, he still did not reap the blessing of having the birthright. Why? Because he threw it away. He sold it unto his brother. Look at verse number 37. It says, "And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son?" And Esau said unto his father, "Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, "Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above." So he's basically saying to Esau, you're going to be out in the fields, you're going to be under the dew of heaven, and that's what you get. That's what your blessing is. So enjoy it, is what he's basically pointing to him, because he's saying, look, Jacob, I've given everything unto Jacob here. And he kind of prophesies here a little bit. He says, "And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck." So at some point in the future, Esau, he's going to no longer be under Jacob. That's what he's saying here. He's no longer to be a servant of Jacob. And the Bible doesn't indicate exactly when that takes place, but we do know that later on, Esau and Jacob do reconcile. And that is a part of Esau growing and Esau maturing and getting over this infraction, I guess, to his ego here, because he wants to kill Jacob at this point. It says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand, then will I slay my brother Jacob. So he's filled with envy. He's filled with hatred towards his brother because he made a mistake. He messed up. And, we ought not to get in our hearts, when we mess up or when we make a mistake, to want to blame other people. We need to say, I'm the profane person. I'm the one who made a mistake. I'm the one who's reaping the punishment for that. I'm the one who's in trouble. And, stick to that and not, you caused me this pain. No, here we see Esau, he received the punishment regardless of his tears, regardless of him, trying to say, oh, that my brother did it. My brother took it from me. And, you will be angry. You will get angry. I will make you angry or somebody else will make you angry. That will happen to you. But what you do in that anger is what determines, how mature or how, grown up in the faith you are. Because the Bible says, be ye angry and sin not. Anger itself is not sin. That's just a normal reaction to, someone, crossing you or someone, upsetting you. But you don't take that anger and say, well, now I'm going to go hurt this person, or now I'm going to, make sure that their life is miserable and horrible. Don't act hastily, because anger oftentimes, if you say right now, I don't want to be angry with anyone. I don't want to cause harm on somebody because of my anger. Okay. Well, that's a good practice to be in. When you say, if they may upset me, I'll just pray for them. Ask God to make the situation be a healthy and a happy situation, and not me getting angry, because we can't carry around a grudge in our heart. That will make ourselves sick. That'll make you sick if you say, I'm angry at this person, and you're carrying around that hatred for other people. We are not to be people that are harboring anger in our hearts. Flip over to Proverbs chapter 19. Proverbs chapter 19. So what ought we to do when we are angry? Well, we need to move slowly, right? We need to take some time to think, to relax just a little bit. In Proverbs 19, verse 11, it kind of gives us some insight into how we ought to behave when someone causes us to be angry, or when we're the person who have made somebody else angry. It says here, the discretion of a man deferreth his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression. So what does it mean to defer, or to defer the anger? That means to delay the anger. So the Bible's teaching us here that yes, it is wise, is a good thing to delay your anger. If you're the one who's getting angry, go ahead and practice delaying that. You know what? I'll defer this for another time after I pray. It's often taught to not make serious decisions when you are in an emotional state such as anger or fear. You don't make decisions when you're in that state, because oftentimes you make a wrong decision. It says here, discretion, the discretion of a man. Well, discretion is when you're careful. You think about what you're going to do before you do it. Discretion is kind of like, having that pause button on your emotions. And yeah, this is hard to do, but this is something that we ought to practice so that we're not just lashing out and becoming angry at other people and, causing our wrath to lead us into sin. It says discretion here because we ought to say, wait a minute, let me pause, right? And think about what are the ramifications, or what's going to happen if I get angry? What does it mean for me to lash out at them, yell at them, throw something at them, hurt them, harm them because of my anger? Well, what we ought to do is to defer that anger. Wait. There's this priority on delaying your anger, and the Bible is teaching that here. It's wise to not just immediately lash out at someone and return anger for this upset. Look at verse number 40, or flip back to Genesis chapter 27. Genesis 27. I'll read for you Ecclesiastes 7:9, which says, "Be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger resteth in the bosom of fools." So it's foolish to hold on to anger, the Bible teaches. Look at verse 42 in Genesis 27. It says, "And these words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah, and she sent and called Jacob her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice and arise, flee thou to Laban my brother, to Haran, and tarry with him a few days until thy brother's fury turn away." And that is a good practice right there. You know, you may be tempted when you cause someone to be angry and upset. You may be tempted to say, well, let me go ahead and try to fix it real quick. You ought to also just wait a little bit until their fury died down. Wait a little bit until they're calm and they're in a position where they can actually talk to you, because sometimes you may make someone so angry that they may want to kill you. I mean, they're not going to kill you, but they're just like, and they can't handle it. That's not the time where you want to rush to them and say, oh, I meant to say this, or I want to do this. Let their anger die down a little bit, and then you can come back unto them and try to reconcile. Or, and when it comes to reconciling with someone who's angry with you, you want to ask questions. You don't want to, point fingers. You did this. You said this. You want to be entreating of them, where you're coming, you're asking questions. Are you okay? Was what I said, it was really bad? Or how are you feeling? That's how you want to approach them. But you ought to wait when their fury dies down just a little bit. And Rebekah, that's what I take from here. She's like, oh, your brother, he's just dreaming about killing you. So go ahead and just, go your way and wait until his fury dies down. It says, verse 45, "Until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him, then I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day?" And she's obviously referring to the death of Jacob, the death of her son, or even the death of Esau, because they might have gotten to a fight. Go ahead and look at verse number 46. The last verse of this chapter, it kind of lines up with the last verse of chapter 26, where it says here, "And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth." These are the Hittite daughters she's referring to that Esau had married. Judith and Bashemath, they were daughters of the Hittites, the Canaanites in that land. And here, so last time what I was trying to present is that, with the mother-in-law is upset with the daughters-in-law, right? That's going to be a bad situation. It's going to be really bad if your spouse's mom or your spouse's dad hates you or doesn't like you, okay? And here we see how Rebekah is kind of confessing that her life, she's weary of her life because of these women, these daughters-in-law. They're so bad. And you can also draw from this, make sure your spouse is saved, right? Make sure your spouse is someone who goes to church, wants to serve the Lord, okay? At least at a starting point, because you definitely don't want your parents to be personally wearied because of your spouse. And then she points to Jacob here, which I find interesting. She says, "If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these which are of the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do me?" So she's like, I hope, Lord, please, I pray that Jacob does not marry one of the women of this land. I mean, it should tell you that the Canaanites, they were, awful people. Esau, he married two of them. And it goes to show that you could cause a disturbance in your father-in-law or your mother-in-law if you marry, a wicked person. Okay, and the reality is that if you don't marry an individual who wants to serve the Lord, who's saved, well, that your marriage is going to be challenging, and the relationship with your in-laws will be challenging as well, especially if they're involved at all. What Rebecca's saying here, trust me, that happens now. That happens all the time, where the mother-in-law, she does not like the daughters-in-law because they could be unsaved, they could be just wicked women or whatever, but she's having difficulty here. And there will be difficulty if your spouse is someone that, your parents, they disagree with. And so I think that it's good to, let your parents meet your potential spouse, right? Let's say, young men, you like a particular lady. Well, you know what? It's good for your parents to meet the young lady. And if your parents are like, oh, wow, come here, you should take that to heart. Like, I missed something, maybe, because, oftentimes you're just looking at the pretty face. So like, oh, okay, this is great. I'm going to marry her. And she's the worst person ever. Okay. Don't discount what other people are saying about the young lady that you might be wanting to marry. And the same thing with the young ladies. It's good for your parents to know or to at least meet the young man that wants to marry you, right? And, Genesis 26:28, and even this verse here, they're kind of verses that are like not a part of the story, but it's very important, especially when it comes to marriage, because marriage is a serious thing, and it's till death do you part. And so, yes, you don't want to have a difficult marriage. You don't want it to be stressful. You don't want your parents or to be stressed out because of your spouse. And so it is a good thing. It's good and wise to let your parents meet your potential spouse. And you can spend a lot of time on that, but it's a good idea. It's wise to have a good relationship with your in-laws when it comes to your spouse. And if you don't, you say, well, what if I don't? Well, what if I just ignore them? What if we just go off somewhere and we just elope somewhere? We're off in some other location. Well, your marriage is going to be very difficult because you have no support. You have no people that are there that are rooting for you. You want to bless you, want to help you, and be a shoulder to lean on. You want your parents to be involved and not be weary, as Rebecca was of Esau's wives here. And so this chapter is a lot of story. There's a lot of history going on here, a lot of things being recorded. We didn't go through everything, even though it may seem like we did, but I did want to get through the entire chapter of the story. And, it's great to read God's word, to study it, go verse by verse, and to see all the things that we can draw out of it. Genesis 27 is no different. But there's a great blessing for those who want to follow the Lord, especially when you have your parents included. So you definitely want to include your parents in any following the Lord that you do, or even serving God that you do. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I do thank you for your word, Lord. I thank you for every single word that we can read and study and we can put in our hearts. And I pray that you would let us grow and learn from your words. And I pray, God, that it would be a blessing unto those that heard. And I ask, God, that you would bless the fellowship that we have after service and guide us all home safely this evening, Lord. It's in Jesus' name I pray.